So, I've been reading the FNAF novels lately, and I found myself overthinking the heck out of them. This led me to finding some interesting parallels which I haven't seen getting nearly enough attention. Parallels about the nature of things like the way animatronics are processed, the involvement of Michael in FNAF 3's ending, true dates of certain events, and funnily enough, I think I figured out the warzone that is the identity of Golden Freddy. Not only that, but I also believe the similarities between the novels and the games can give us answers to an awful lot of frequent questions in the fandom, quite definitively. Today I'm gonna share with you my insight, and we're gonna aim to answer questions like what the toy animatronics truly possess, who was the happiest day party for, and what's really going on in FNAF 3's cryptic minigames. So with the intro out of the way, let's cut straight to the chase, cause oh boy do we have a lot to talk about. In a very overlooked moment of the third novel of the series, The Fourth Closet, William Afton is confronted by one of the book's main characters, Gordon. Afton says that for him to control the remnant-infused robots, these have to be willing volunteers. Now, we've known for a while that a way to possess animatronics is to inject remnants into their bodies, but what's often overlooked is that soul splitting is not possible if the spirit does not give a part of itself willingly. What Afton didn't know was what would happen if said remnant was injected to a living person. So, as one does, he stabbed Colton in the heart with a child's soul soup-infused needle, just to see what happens. This causes Colton to fall to the ground and enter a dreamlike state where he sees his brother Michael, not to be confused with our game's main protagonist, as this is the novel's version of Golden Freddy, even though Cassidy exists here, but that's a whole other can of worms for later. Mike is trying to put back together his memories, which is some interesting wording definitely, but we'll touch on that later as well. The important thing here is that with the help of Colton using their memories, the spirits are put back together, which makes some of the remnant-infused circus animatronics that are seen earlier in the book, which also seem to be haunted, turn off and lay motionless, as if they were no longer possessed. A few panels later, Afton sends Mangle to dispose of a new child, and it's presented as if Susie was in control of the robot, not seeing it as explicitly killing another kid, but more so as if a new friend were to join them. In the moment Colton reveals to her that the rabbit is not her friend, just like in the movie, using the exact same method and everything, the Mangle also stops being possessed, and the children occupy the original animatronic bodies, which have been melted into one, real or Mitavi style, to take revenge on William, burning him alive supposedly alongside themselves, finally being able to move on, and with the detail of Michael leaving a piece of himself to Colton, saying that he'll die without it. Does that ring any bells? Now this has a lot of implications, seriously, more than you might think at first glance. 4 pages out of a 200-page graphic novel, and I do not have the mental strength to recheck how many pages explore this in the book, give us an awful lot to work on and theorize. The first thought that came to mind is that these events could explain why the FNAF 3 animatronics / ghost help William, except the puppet?
The others are like animals, but I am very aware.
But that whole kind of warmth of an animatronic is definitely for another video. They think Mike is his father. They do look similar, and it wouldn't be the first time the same set of children confuse the two of them. And Spring Bunny is their friend. In this timeline, no one has reminded them that the yellow bunny is the one that took their lives, so all they see is one of their friends trying to get revenge on their killer. This is also why William enters the Springlock suit in the minigames. We've always wondered why that's the first thing he does when cornered by the spirits. Was it because he just felt safe in there? Was it a panic move with no real reason? Well, no, the movie even tells us explicitly, but we've had a reason since 2015 actually. Williams is in the first book ever written by Scott of the franchise. He is one of them. In the games, they do recognize William, the guard, as the man that took their lives, but they think Bonnie is their friend. The spirits can't see that they're the same person, that's why William laughs maniacally. He knows they can't get him in there. In the games, there is never a moment where the spirits are shown who Springtrap is. Both incarnations of the event where the memories are quote-unquote put back together are accomplished by using drawings. However, I checked every single picture drawn by children in the actual games and I couldn't even find Spring Bunny there. So we could assume the kids have no real idea who William is until maybe the events of Pizzeria Simulator. Otherwise, why would Molten Freddy attack Springtrap in the game? Seeing as how the Fountains were eager to kill William, it doesn't make sense why presumably the same kids that once attacked him wouldn't do it again. But as we determined a few moments ago, they just didn't know any better. It's maybe through Henry's speech or some other reason that by the time the Pizzeria Simulator ends, they do find out who Afton is, leading to what happens in Ultimate Custom Night.
We know who our friends are, and you are not one of them.
So let's back half a minute and look at another thing we can extract from this. Carlton helps the kids get their happiest day by being infected with Remnant. This could contextualize what happens in FNAF 3's minigames. Through some oddly specific steps, we can access a series of arcade minigames, 6 in total, that at first glance seem bizarre. But I think under the context of a Remnant-infused Michael interacting with the spirits, the minigames can be given meaning and explained. FNAF 3's minigames are probably the weirdest and hardest to make sense of in the franchise, especially since most things going on in them are completely abstract, but a recap of the events that transpire in them goes like this. Throughout the minigames, we give cakes to specifically 4 children, and then in the final one, we see the puppet give one to a final 5th kid, and presumably they all move on to the afterlife, leading to the good ending. Being noted that if the previous kids were not given their gifts, there is no cake, leading to the bad ending. My question here is not yet what giving cake means, or what did the crying figures in the background mean. My question here is, what changes? What changes in between minigames that makes it so that the kids are able to move on to the afterlife or not? And if you've been paying any attention so far, you know that we've got a pretty good answer, Michael. We know that Remnant-infused people can connect with the ghosts directly. Heck, the dream sequence in the novels might be a direct parallel between Carlton helping the missing children and Michael doing the same. Maybe the minigames are memories, faint memories that the ghosts had of moments they lived through while possessing the animatronics at certain points of Freddy's history. We know from the novels that a kid can possess different animatronics at the same time, so it wouldn't be crazy to assume that they possessed the toy animatronics when the Withers inhabited the FNAF 2 location. And we see what seems to be a kid stuffed in a Fredbear suit in the FNAF 4 cutscenes, meaning that it would make sense for one of them to have memories taking place in the stage where Fredbear and Spring Bonnie perform. Now, Michael gets infused in Sister location. So when is that? There are plenty of videos that look set Sister location in a certain spot in the timeline, so we can save the trouble. I'll be leaving a video I found and used for reference in the description that makes some interesting points, you should check it out. The important thing here is that the general consensus on the matter is that Sister location's events, most importantly the scooping, probably happened before the burning of FNAF Fridays. But I got a tiny clue that I believe has been majorly overlooked by the community. In the survival logbook, we see Foxy reading a familiar magazine, Screws, Bolts and Hairpins. For anyone that hasn't played his location, this is implied to be the magazine from which Michael found the Java Circus babies.
Welcome to the first day of your exciting new career. Whether you were approached at a job fair, read our ad in Screws, Bolts and Hairpins, or if this is the result of a dare, we welcome you.
And we can infer the Foxy cartoon to be a representation of Michael, also seeing how the book seems to come from Fazbear Frights and he's the security guard there. Now the thing I want to point out is Phone Dude's line in his first phone call in FNAF 3.
Hey, glad you came back for another night. I promise it'll be a lot more interesting this time.
Now, my personal theory and interpretation here is that Mike worked at Fazbear Frights for a bit, before going to work at Sister Location's place, and coming back after the event of this game. Now, do take this with a grain of salt, because there's the obvious implication that he must have gotten that job back while being a walking corpse, but if that wasn't an issue in FNAF 6, I don't really think that's an issue here. Also to be noted is that Michael lets Carlton have some of his remnants to survive, just like Baby did in Sister Location, marking more of a parallel between the two of them. Now I'm gonna hit you with a real one here. In the FNAF 2 minigame Give Gifts, Give Life, the puppet is shown giving different animatronic masks to the spirits. There are plenty of interpretations of this, ranging from the marionette being the one who stuffed the kids into the animatronics, which in my opinion sounds way too dumb for this to be the implied meaning, from her actually gifting the rods to the kids to use as bodies, giving them a way to move, giving them the closest thing they could get to live again. Give gifts, give life. What I find curious about this minigame is specifically that Golden Freddy is not given a body. Golden Freddy has always been kind of an outlier, yes, but why isn't the spirit given a proper body like the rest? Well, we've got to look at the full picture here. There are two ways of looking at it. We could say that Golden Freddy seems to be the most vengeful spirit out of the bunch, so maybe that's why he needs a whole party to be put back together. This would mean that the canon ending is actually the bad one. As simple as that explanation is, I want to propose an alternative. What if the reason the fifth kid doesn't quite get a body is because there was no room for them? What if Garrett was already there, or vice versa? Just hear me out a minute here. We've all heard the golden duo theory, that there's two kids possessing Golden Freddy, and I believe I can make it make even more sense than it did before using what information we have from the games and a couple parallels we have from the books. This comes from a revelation I had in the making of this video while researching footage to use as background. It's a tiny little detail which I glossed over before that seems like a nothing at first but could lead to a much wider narrative. We see that there's already a body inside of Fredbear in FNAF 4, so we could infer that the MCI has either already happened or is actively happening. This would also make sense with the novels where Charlie's death is stated to happen in 1983. The text at the end of the game has always been extremely cryptic for the community. We know that the one talking to the bad victim is not William, but then who? Well, let's have a look at the lines. You're broken, we're still your friends. Note how also this entity is speaking as the plushies disappear. Garrett is losing his memories. What if the ones talking to him are the other children? This would imply that the MCI were friends with Bite Victim. In the novels, everyone kind of knew each other already, so I guess you could say that's a parallel to that, but I'm talking off script right now. So do leave your opinion about that and this timeline placement in the comments, because it's gonna be something I want to expand on in my next video, since there are some things that I can't quite pin down in a satisfying way yet. What made me think this theory might be solid is that the final line of Goldie here is "I will put you back together," which is exactly what we see Cassidy try to do in the logbook. They communicate through faded text, and we know it's Cass because we got their name out of the book, but we also know it's a crying child answering the questions because he says the party was for him. Huh? Whatever party they were talking about. Also, this will be narratively satisfying. The way they all find to move on together is by, with the help of Michael, putting back together the memories of a happiest day for Garrett, and everything would be much more fitting for the bad victim to be the happiest day receiver, even more if the way he was able to move on was with the help of his brother, as we discussed earlier. Another parallel that fits in with this explanation is the Stitch Rage storyline. Basically, if you haven't read the Fazbear Frights epilogues, which I wouldn't blame you, there are like 12 books in total, it's a story about two souls controlling the same endoskeleton, with one of them eventually being able to find rest and moving on to the afterlife, while the other one willingly stays. I believe this could explain why not only there are two Golden Freddys in both FNAF 2 and 3, with Phantom Freddy being called Golden in the files, but also why in the good ending, notably, there's a lack of him in the final picture. Cassidy didn't get to move on like the others did, he's still out for revenge. So this is getting long, so let's go with the question we haven't fully addressed yet. Are the toys possessed? This was the one I'd say I'm the most confident on. Now for you, this may vary depending on your interpretation of the Save Them minigame, but in my opinion, yes and no. They are not possessed by a whole new set of children as we might have thought before. We see in the novels that a spirit can control multiple animatronics at the same time, and hell, we even see Mangle being controlled by Susie. Can't get more explicit than that. Even more, every animatronic in Circus Babies seem to be controlled by the missing children. Now, whether the game's fun times are the same is something I would like to discuss in a different video, but my conclusion is that the novels try to tell us that the toys themselves were probably either just infused with remnants or the presence of the spirits was messing with their code. So give me your thoughts, and remember that by liking this video you're helping it reach more people, so that would be really appreciated. Thank you for watching.